Hey guys, Dr. Jake Hansen here from the Chiropractors Edge, and I have a powerful podcast in store for you today. When King Leonidas was protecting his country, he chose the top 300 to protect his country. He didn't choose the weaklings, he chose the best of the best of the best. He chose his warriors, and I have a warrior in chiropractic and in business. He is the author of best-selling books, 2 incredible books that I've read that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. This man is an advocate for dads. He is the founder of daddiest.com, and I bring to you the one, the only, Dr. Scott Vatcher. From the land down under, welcome to the Chiropractors Edge.
From the land down under, you got to love the song.
You're all over the world, it seems like. I mean, I know your reach is all over the world, but yeah, welcome from Australia.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good night, depending on when you're listening to this.
Yeah, that's right. You're an incredible chiropractor, and you come from a place of abundance. You know, and obviously looking at your work, looking at daddies, which is just absolutely incredible, you know, being such an advocate for dads and, you know, from all aspects of life, dads who are thriving, that want to take their lives to the next level, you know, as husbands, as fathers, as individuals, as business owners. And you take this in such a way that I've never really seen before in life, where it's not coming from a place of scarcity, not coming from a place of weakness, it's coming from a place of authentic, humble power. How did that come to be? You know, and then how do we mix that, you know, here as chiropractors?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I never really looked at myself that way. It's a funny one, hey, because the way that you asked that question made me think that whenever my wife gives me a compliment, I always sort of brush it off, and she's like, "Just accept it, just accept." So when you say something like that, I tend to want to make something funny and sort of brush it off. So I'm not good at accepting compliments. So thanks for that. And the true answer is really just doing what I do. That's really it. I don't know where to go with that, as far as just really that's who I am. You know, if you get to know me, or if anyone's listening here who actually does know me, I just tell it like it is.
I love that. There's a quote that is etched in stone at A&M University in Texas. It says, "We are what we think, therefore think excellence." We begin with our thoughts first, you know, and when it comes to those thoughts, and obviously going through a really tough time, we see a lot of docs who have struggled during COVID, and several docs who have only thrived and have only grown and scaled. And it becomes with those thoughts. So when it comes to that abundant mindset, you know, when it comes to that, and every doc says, it's very interesting. I hear docs that are struggling, and the first thing they say for me is, you know, I need new patients, I need this, and I'm just struggling. I'm like, listen, you have everything. You have everything you could ever want. You need to go back to your mindset, because this is what the greatest leaders of all time always go back to: is what's going on here? What's going on here? What are some words of wisdom that have helped you create the wealth that you've created within chiropractic, and then your reach to the world through that abundance mindset?
Yeah, my sort of latest project is around authority and helping chiropractors to achieve a greater level of authority. And it really does. I'm just getting ready to do a talk down here in Australia coming up in about a month. And they're on me to go, okay, what's the topic of your talk? What are you going to talk about? And I'm like, it's got to come back to mindset and authority, because they really are hand in hand. And there's lots of hacks or ideas that you can do to try and increase that authority. But if it isn't here first, it's never going to happen. So it really, truly is about walking the walk and talking the talk.
Yeah. You know, what we do some of the time, we do all the time. We are an accumulation of all the small things that we do. And that's the difference that I see with our brothers and sisters in chiropractic, is those that were already, that were thinking first, you know, they think, be, you know, say, do. When they had that in their mindset first of who they are, they didn't change. You know, when they were abundantly wealthy, they didn't get lazy, they didn't sleep in, they kept pushing. They didn't stop doing the things that matter most. They didn't stop with their prayer, their meditation, their learning, their giving. It only continued. And, we among so many were blessed to the point where we want to scale massively. And that's where so many, obviously in the Chiropractors Edge, where many are. And we also have others that are struggling and others that are just beginning. And it always starts with that absolute thought. As you and I were talking, pre-game show and reading your bio and whatnot, you have some pretty influential people in your life. And a lot of us, who we surround ourselves with, proximity is one of the greatest foundations for success. I found being able to get close to the people who are super successful. Who are some of the people that have truly inspired you with this mindset to not only just, get through all this crisis, but to thrive through it?
Yeah, I mean, me being down here in Australia, and we all probably have our own stories about what we've been through in the last few years. And I guess I've been one of those fortunate ones that you'd mentioned earlier who really thrived through this whole COVID thing. And my practice, I don't know what percentage wise, but it was significantly higher. And it really was about, probably comes back to, weeding out some of the negative aspects of the negative thoughts to things and really focusing on people. Because when things first hit, if we just talk about COVID as an example, when things first hit, there was a bit of a drag on the practice, particularly with new clients. People were scared, people weren't going outside. And so, I was trying to teach my regular people that, hey, this is what you still should be doing. It's still about health. It's still about vitality. And this is a great way to achieve that and to maintain it. But as that was happening and there were a few less people, I really got back to the basics. And being that little bit less busy, I really enjoyed spending just a little bit extra time with people. And through that, just really reignited some passion within the practice. And that's where it came from, the mindset, the passion. And that alone had such a dramatic difference. But I believe it's probably because it was already there, right? And so for some of the docs that are struggling out there, definitely reach out to docs that are successful, because the ones that are, they likely reached out to other chiropractors who were successful and got some help.
Yes.
I was just listening to a podcast the other day and they brought up a great point. It's like, if you're looking for somebody to get a little bit of mentorship from, really great way to do it is to have a very specific question that you ask them and go, listen, hey, can I tickle your brain about something? Can I have a little thought process? Here's a question that I'm looking to get answered. And so from that, you can move that needle forward, but you're not asking that mentor to fix your life, right? Because that's a big one. It's not going to happen, right? No one's coming to save you. You got to do it yourself. But small incremental steps, one at a time, very slowly and methodically, will make a massive difference. I think it was Tony Robbins that said, you overestimate what you can do in a year and greatly underestimate what you can do in 10.
Yes. I love being able to communicate and talk with, wonderful people like yourself who go back to the same principles. It's the fundamentals, right? Just like in any sport, you go back to the fundamentals, and people get sick of hearing that. It's like, no, tell me the trick play, doc. What's the trick play?
What's that?
Like, well, there are trick plays. There are little things you can say. There's little nuances that can, little skill sets. There's drivers in your practice. There's, people say, what do you physically do to, bring in patients? Like I'm one of the docs where I still do some spinal screenings a couple of times a year. They're not, the part of my practice, but I do them incredibly, incredibly well. And others like, oh, really? Like, oh, man, I did that and it didn't work. It's like, well, what do we teach in chiropractic? What did Gonstead teach? Well, don't say it's chiropractic that failed. Maybe it's the application of it, right? And so getting yourself close to mentors, the most successful people that I know have mentors and have coaches. The most successful, the people who scale and go from millions to decamillions to centimillions to close to billions, all have mentors, every one of them. The people that I'm getting close to are the people who are successful with their minds, with their hearts, and in their families. I measure success by, hey, how's your marriage? How are you feeling? How's your life? How are your kids? Are you able to have the success and still get that, and still do what matters most to you and still achieve those things? And those are one of the principles that you stand by that I absolutely love. Why do you think it is that in times of crisis, and you hit it, why is it in times of crisis people start then panicking and looking for new things as opposed to going to what they've already built? You have to, before an accident, one of the biggest indicators for health is how healthy were you before the accident or an injury? How healthy were you before? Why is it when crisis has happened, these docs, they try to look for new things as opposed to going back to the basics that have gotten them to that point of success in the first place?
That's a great question. We've probably all done it to some degree. I'm trying to think back to a time that I would have done something like that. I think it really does come back to when you are in that crisis state, you're just not thinking straight. So think about crisis, think about overwhelm, right? And I think most of us can put ourselves into overwhelm very quickly if we just start thinking too much. If we start going, okay, I've got to do this and then this and this, and then that's going to get this, but what if this goes wrong, et cetera. I always go back to, and it might have even been Sean Dill who said this or something along this lines. When in overwhelm, just take the next logical step. Just break it down, slow it down, and take one logical step forward. And when that one's done, what's the next logical step by step? And I think that's it has been for me anyway, a real key to going from overwhelm to moving forward, right? I'm doing a whole new venture right now, and I get an overwhelm probably every day. And it's just like, okay, what's the next step? You were saying earlier again in the pre-shows, 18 different companies and trying to figure out this and that. And it's like, oh my God, there's too many things. It's like, okay, well, what's the next step?
And you're right. It's being able to counsel with people who are already there. The fastest way to get to any destination, talk to someone who's already there. Hey, I've been where you are and I'm here now. Here's where you want to be. I'm where you want to be, and ask. And they always go back to those fundamentals. Okay, what's the next most logical step today? Did you skip your workout? Nope. Because I know you work out for an hour and a half every day. You meditate, you do your podcast, you do your power hour, and then you're hungry for everything else. You do those basics. Like, okay, I'm founded. I'm okay. We're doing just fine. Like, take a look around you, but communicate with those mentors. So I'd like to jump into one of your latest and most successful. So you are a best-selling author of Move It or Lose It. And I would love to be able to talk about that. So we have a lot of docs in our group who are wanting to write a book and they're wanting to get their vision out there. And you've been there very successfully already. How did that book come to be? And how are you using that to leverage you and chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'd throw it out there. 9 out of 10 people listening to this have at least thought about being an author. And there's a big difference between thinking about it and becoming. There's a lot of steps in between. Again, you can go quickly into overwhelm around it. That's probably why most people, 9 out of 10, are not authors, right? And so it was a process. It took a long time. I worked it out to be roughly about 1,000 hours that I put into writing that book. And this was a book, it's called Move It or Lose It. Some people get it confused with something like Move It to Lose It. And they think, is it a weight loss book? It's like, no, it's Move It or Lose It. Because it's a term that I've always used in the practice. I've always been a big advocate of movement. As you mentioned, I do train very regularly. I love it. I don't know what I'd do without it. And I talk about chiropractic being the miniature moves that you can't do yourself, and then get your body out there and do all the big stuff. So I wrote this book with that in mind, where the word chiropractor is in there, I believe, once in the whole book, but the principles of chiropractic are throughout the whole book. Yep. And so probably the greatest accolade that I got from numerous people, actually, a lot of my clients who read it, who English is their second language. And they said, this book was amazing because I was able to understand it. And I was like, wow, how great. Like that was the best
No
accolade
kidding.
I've gotten. Yeah. So I think I did a good job of getting it and breaking it down. Like we talk about, innate intelligence and all of that in there without using the lexicon, without boring people with too many big words. So I keep it very simple, but there's a lot of amazing things in there. So I'm really proud of that work. And then around that, what I did is I designed a movement program, right? So I kind of call it like your physio in a pocket, right? So because I'm a big advocate of all of, like, I go to a physio, I go to a chiro, I go to a massage, I go to acupuncture. It's all great. It's none of it's chiropractic, except for chiropractic, obviously. But all these other things are really good for you. So I wanted to get away where I could very easily inside the practice utilize the book to teach the principles and to people outside the practice. But then on top of that, have a motivation and an inspiration to move your body in the right way. All right. So I created a 30-day online course that goes with the book. And so it's just a great program that I've put together. And it's so easy to get out into the community with this program, right? Hey, I'm a best-selling author and I've got this program. Oh, great. That sounds amazing. Okay. What do we do to get you in? So it really is a big door opener to utilize.
For those watching and listening, so we do have, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's been on our website for a little while now, but if you go to the chiropractorsedge.com, we do have a link there. I think the day before everything went big for you, I think I bought your book.
Right.
And had it read that night, I think, and It was fantastic. And one of the things I love about you, Scott, is, you are able to, a lot of docs, obviously have their success within chiropractic, but to delineate what is chiropractic and what is not chiropractic is very important. Obviously, when it comes to guarding that sacred trust that we have, but there is no problem. And again, we have like 16 LLCs right now. We have other businesses, and some are exactly 100% chiropractic. And others are drivers that help me to do things that I'm passionate about. Like one of our companies is a custom knife making experience company. That has nothing to do with chiropractic, but it's something I'm passionate about. But because of chiropractic, I'm able to do other things. I have options. And that's one of the greatest things you have, is you teach others how to have options. If there was a need for you to get here, you could say, Doc, you know what? It's going to take me about 15 hours, but I can get on a private plane and I can be there. You have options. And that's what so many people want. You may not want to do a private plane, but to have the option to do so, what a great blessing that is, to have options. What are some of the things that you have found for the doctor that has that $1 million practice and has other businesses? What are some of the next most logical steps that you have found in your career to bring your life to the next level, so you can have options to write a book, options to create another business, option to pursue some of the other things that bring you joy and that light you up?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, from my own experience, and that's all I can talk about, is it depends on what you want to do, first of all, right? Like, to look at what else you might want to do outside of the practice. If you got a great practice and you're working 60, 80 hours a week, I would think that that's not necessarily a great practice, because there's no balance in there, right? That if there's a person like that, first thing I would say is, how is your family life? How is your health? And what is success for you, right? So it comes back again to those basics to see where you're at. Now, if you do want to maintain that level of, say, numbers inside the practice, if it was a money or a patient scenario, of course, the logical scenario would be to get associates in. Like at one point I had just the three of us was the most I've ever had as far as associates. And it was almost $1 million practice, but I've never really looked at it in that way, because I was making more money than I ever expected to make. And it was fantastic. I had a lot of choices. And right now I practice 2 days a week, and I still am doing extremely well and still have all the choices that I want. From a financial side of things, I'm just about to buy 2 more houses. There's a lot of things going on that have worked really, really well for me. And I only work the 2 days a week. So it's great. So I would go back to more of that. What is it that you want out of success? What does success mean to you? And what is it you want out of your life? because
Yes.
that allowed me to go and write a book and create a whole new business around this book. And so it's been a heap of fun. And I couldn't have done that if I was in overwhelm or if I was working 60 or 80 hours a week, because I can tell you that's where burnout happens. And you can be making $1 million and be absolutely depressed, absolutely just not having fun in life. And what is the point?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to pick that apart for a second. So, and so you hit it back on the what, which is so important. What do you want? We have a lot of docs who are like, Doc, man, I'm at that $1 million practice. I'm at 5 million. I'm at where I want to be, but they pursue another trajectory because they've heard other people do that. Well, I heard you go into public speaking now. That's what you do, right? Well, do you want that? That's exactly. I hear you go into coaching. Is that's the next step, right? Well, is that what you want? Right? Do what you want. We have chiropractors who say, I want to stroke out at 94 on my table on a patient. That's how I want to go out, right? Other docs and I have other docs who are principled to say, I want to retire at 40.
Absolutely. I thought I was going to, what I can tell you, I remember the conversations in chiropractic school is that I was going to be that guy. I'm practicing till I'm 100. That was the way it is. And now I'm 47 and I could see myself potentially retiring in the next year or so from active practice, right? I think I will always have some connection to chiropractic with helping the profession because I think it is the best profession in the world. And we have this amazing secret that still most people don't know about. I think it's crazy that how many people still don't know about it. But so I could see myself out of practice in the next year. So who knows which trajectory things are going to take in life for anybody who's listening.
But again, knowing what you want, you'll go exactly where you want to go. It's the whole story of Alice in Wonderland, right? She comes to that fork in the road and the Cheshire Cat appears. She says, well, which road should I take? And he goes, well, where do you want to go? She goes, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So know what you want. Know what you want. Because what I find is we constantly get questions. Constantly. Hey, doc, should I do this? Should I buy this new machine? Should I hire a CA? I'm like, well, what do you want? Where are you at? Where are you going? Oh, I don't know. Well, then it doesn't freaking matter.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to know.
And I think people can get scared and get into that overwhelmed state that we talked about.
There you go.
When they think, you want me to know where I'm going to be 20 years from now? Like, no. That's a long time away. You might have a vision, but really break it down into very much smaller. Where do you want to be a year from now? Then work on that. And 6 months from now, you could be there already, or it might take longer, but at least there's a vision, a smaller vision or a yardstick to measure yourself against. But yeah, don't get into too much overwhelm because who the hell knows where any of us are going to be 20 years from now.
Right. And you brought it. I mean, that's a great point is, the bigger the vision, the bigger the life. One of my mentors, Liam Schubel, says that, the bigger your vision. And I have colleagues who have 100-year lifetime of goals planned out. And I have a lot of docs and you see these greats, but they didn't get there overnight. It took them decades to get that vision and that mindset. I always say, start with the next, like you said, what's the next most logical step?
Absolutely.
In the great, hilarious movie, What About Bob? Right? They talk about baby steps, those silly little literal baby steps. Like, don't think about getting to your practice today. What do I need to get out of this room? What's the next most logical step? And that's why with us, we do our 5 daily habits every single day where so my day today started last night at 9:00. I reviewed my day, becoming a student of my calendar, reading everything. I was like, hey, I got Scott, and you are the fourth agenda item on my list this morning. My morning started at 4. In the US, it's, and guys, by the way, it's getting close to midnight on his time, and he is up and firing all cylinders. But it's knowing what I wanted to do and being aware of that. How many of you guys get to the point of your day where like, oh crap, I forgot to do this. I had this agenda item that was so important, yet you missed it. Why do people miss out on the things that matter most in their life that you found? Why do we miss opportunities? Why do we miss meetings? Why do we say, oh, I had 2 things that I had to get done today and we did 200? Why do we miss out on doing the 2 that mattered most? Why does that happen that you've seen?
I think it's that mixture of scared of success, scared of failure. So if I don't try, I can not blame it on that. Right. So what if I do this and I still fail?
Wow.
That's where I think a lot of people go when there's 100 things on your list, but these top 2 are the ones you need to do, but you get the other 98 done. It's like, oh, well, I succeeded today because I got 98 out of 100 things done, when really all you needed to get done was those 2.
Wow.
Scared
it's almost
of failure.
like, we've lived in various times in our life where we were just a few minutes away from our practice. Now we're about 18 minutes away. But I see people who do treadmill living, where they'll walk 18 miles on a treadmill. And it depends on your why and your what, right? If your goal is, I want to exercise today, hey, great. But if your goal is, I wanted to go far today, you didn't move. You did a whole lot. I call it whoa busy. Whoa, right. We were busy. You didn't do a dang stinking thing today. And you did, it's an 80-20 rule. You did so many things today that your team should have done or could have done or other people could have done that lights them up. It doesn't light you up, yet you did it. And as opposed to doing the 20% of the things that made you money and that fulfilled you. Now, there are going to be times where we have to plunge toilets and we have to do the hard things. You have to do the hard to get the great, right? Perspiration is one of the sweetest things. Sweat sanctifies that I've found. There's joy in sweating. There's joy in doing those things. But you get to the point where you do those things that bring you joy. To the docs that want to write that book, and you've written a few very, again, best-selling books. Do you have any aspirations to write any more?
I do. Yes. One is just about finished, actually. I've co-authored a book with my buddy, Evan. He's a fellow chiropractor. He hasn't practiced for a little while, interestingly. As we were talking about that, it's for dads. So it for my daddiest group, we are just about finished a monster of a book. It's absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to get it out there. And then the next one that is in my head is I'm thinking of calling it something like The 4th Decade. And it's a book for men who are looking, because basically think about it like this. The 4th decade is probably the most important decade of a man's life. We're past the point of being a boy. We're truly, well, most of us anyway, by the time we reach that age, we're men. The kids are a little bit older. So we're doing what I call crawling out of the cave. We're able to get back some of the things that we had to give up as dads. We talk about, you talked about plunging the toilets and things you have to do. Man, as a dad, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you might not want to do, but you end up doing, right? Because it's what you do as a dad. But you start to crawl out of that cave, and it really is that question of, what do I really want to do with my life? Because kids are that little bit older. You actually do have a little bit of money behind you, some more than others, but you can truly ask that question properly and explore it and set yourself up for the rest of your life. Not only from a financial point of view, but from a purpose point of view, from a health point of view. I think if you let your health slide too much in your 40s, it becomes so much more difficult to get it back in your 50s. Yeah. So anyways, super excited about that as well.
So if you were to give the first most logical step to getting a book down, from having done this, your first most logical step to what would you do different to help you get there quicker? What would you give counsel on for it? Because again, we have so many here that I'm writing my book right now as we speak. I'm in the process of doing my own. What's the first most logical step? And then what are some of the things to help us get there more efficiently and more effectively and to physically get it done? What would you counsel?
Well, you mentioned about the calendar. What was it? Being a student of your calendar earlier. And It's really about penciling in that time each and every, whatever it is, day, second day, week, and really getting focused on getting the job done. but realizing it is a long journey, right? Don't think that you're going to write a book in a day or a week, or at least a decent something, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of editing. It takes a lot of editing. When you think you wrote that last word and you're like, I'm done. You're like, no, you're only about a quarter of the way done by the time you finish writing. And then if you want to utilize it with, like I've done, online programs and stuff that are associated with the book, triple your time. So it is a dedicated process. It's not for everybody. That's why I truly believe most people are not authors. A lot of people have started to write a book and then just didn't finish, right? Yeah. The biggest question behind the writing of a book to me is, well, sort of twofold, is why do I want to write this book, right? Do you have a burning desire, an idea that you think the time has come and there's not material out there that's going to fulfill it in the way that you think you can get a book out there? So you have that burning desire to have something new and unique in the world that's yours? Or are you writing a book to help, for example, grow your business, right? To utilize it as becoming more of an authority figure, right? And if that's the case, then maybe you don't have a book in you. Maybe you need more of a ghostwriting scenario, right? Where you have some idea, you really like the idea of having a book, etc. And actually, that's what I do, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I do have this burning desire, hit me up. Send me an email or whatever, if we're going to give my contact info or whatever, ask me a question if you have anything, and I'll gladly try and point you in the right direction. But if you're looking to do a book for more of a business strategy, then definitely hit me up, because that's actually that new business that I'm doing right now. And I have some really cool ideas around that. So I can essentially have you an author, a book in your hands in 8 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And again, it's your purpose. You know, we have a lot of docs who make a fortune on their books, a lot of entrepreneurs, and we have some that literally give it away because it's a way to help build their authority on what they want. So you got to be very clear on your why. We have a lot of docs say, no, this is only purely for legacy.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what you want. That's awesome. I'm going to make $1 million in my book. Wow. That's right. Awesome. That's what you want. So clearly defining your why. And what I have found in life is, a lot of us, the reason why we don't succeed is, like you said, it's that mindset, that scarcity mindset. I'm going to fail, so I'm going to do other things I'm really good at. As I'm going through my own process right now, my wife tells me, okay, take the dog for a walk and record your thoughts as you go on. So I have a story, a principle in my life. So we share the principle, we share the mindset, we share the vision, we share the big thought, and I share a life story and principles behind it, and I just get it out there. And then she'll listen to it, and we're getting a great team around it. But it's just, like you said, penciling it in and starting in 20-minute intervals. If you start something, what science has proven is if you start something for at least 5 minutes, and if your goal was, okay, and don't start off with, I'm going to spend a day doing it. So many docs. Doc, okay, I'm going to dedicate a day to this. I'm like, okay, that's great. Why don't you start with like 5 minutes? Because most people will fail at a day. Well, why don't you shoot? I mean, you could shoot for a day and fail at an hour, or succeed, So it's all about mindset, right? It's the same thing with goals. And you start with those simple things to the point where then you start getting it out there. But having the right team around you, you can only grow so fast linearly, as fast as your legs can go. But when you're talking about is leverage, you're talking about, hey, Jake, I actually have a private jet, and you're trying to run over here. Would it be helpful if I sent you my jet? Yeah, I could get there a whole heck of a lot faster, right? Instead of a year and a half of walking, I could get there in 15 hours, right? You're talking about leverage. Use leverage. Use the people around you who have already done it, who already are massively successful at it, and you'll get there quicker. Scott, thank you so much for being on the Chiropractors Edge today. for sharing your passion for life, your passion and your mindset and your skill set to get us faster where we want to be. Thank you for being an advocate for fathers, for husbands, for men. Thank you for teaching us the principles of chiropractic in your daily life. And one of his latest books, Move It or Lose It, it's on the chiropractorsedge.com. Dr. Scott, we are so happy to have you on. I'm so looking forward to your next book. I'll be one of the first ones who get it again, because you are at a destination that at one aspect of my life I want to be at. So I'm going to ask you for directions, and we're grateful for you. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your mindset. Thank you for your heart. We're grateful for you. The world is a better place, and I am better because of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.